We're live. Greetings and welcome to Spin a Yarn Live, the Tea Time Book Club and Crafting Circle. Now back in the original location. You may notice nothing's changed. Actually, a lot has changed.
The couch has changed. It's a different couch.
No, it isn't.
I'm
saying from when we originally
downstairs.
Yeah. From when we were originally up here, then we went downstairs, and we came back up here, and it's as if nothing happened.
But a lot has happened. We've got a lot of bookshelves up that you can't see, and actually, this is Paul's office, and things have moved around a lot.
Quite drastically.
Yeah, it is different. It's clean.
For the most part, there's two boxes that need to be emptied.
We still have two.
So yeah, next project in here is to get like shelving back behind us so that you're not looking at kind of a white wall of boring. Great.
Until Osiris passes by, of course.
So, yes, this time we are talking about A Wrinkle in Time for the upcoming movie. But first, let us know what you're working on during this episode. And what are we working on?
Well, I am still working on
Trying to eat that cucumber sandwich.
Yeah, this pullover that I've been working on for a friend of mine, the Princess Pullover from nitpicks.com. If you go, what are you doing? If you go to nitpicks.com and just type in their search Princess Pullover, it'll show up. So yeah, I'm working on that. I'm working right along. Alright.
I'm still working on this nonsense. I've added 2 more colors. So now my threads are just everywhere because I do not know the proper technique. Oh, it looks like I put it away with a knot that I didn't want to deal with. Well, I guess I'm dealing with that today.
Cyrus is joining me.
And what tea are we drinking?
We are drinking our favoriteest black tea, which is the Irish Whiskey Cream black tea.
Don't mind if I do.
Which we've had before, and we're super excited because spring has pretty much sprung here in Atlanta, and very soon, next month actually, in April, the Georgia Renaissance Festival will open up again, and I can get some more. I can stock up.
And even though I didn't mention it, you can interact with the stream by going to Reddit r/SpinAYarnLive and entering the Time Quintet Episode 1 discussion thread. Or you can go to Twitter to #YarnItAll. I did not mention that before because I'm bad at this. Also, yes, last week we failed to record the myth.
My knitting class went on a lot longer than I thought it would.
Yeah.
It's amazing how difficult it is to teach people who have no idea how to knit.
Yeah, a skill that you're just so used to. It's very hard to like understand how somebody's not just instantly capable of fine motor.
Yeah, I was like they kept on trying to, I don't know. I am not, everyone keeps asking me, I have a degree in chemistry, and people are like, why don't you teach chemistry? I'm like, because I am not a very patient teacher. And I'm doing my best with my knitting students, because this is something I truly enjoy. But what?
He wants cucumber sandwiches.
No, you cannot have cucumber sandwiches.
He's hidden. No, Osiris. He's hidden by your, well, I guess not.
He's right there. He's being a boop.
He is being
Stop
boop.
it. This is my sandwich.
Okay, let's see. We already have 1 comment in, maybe. Oh, Vizio TV, I don't care about you. Go away.
TV's all the way downstairs.
What even was that? Go. Peel what? Why are you even installed?
It's on mine too. It won't go away.
And now my phone's been freezing a lot, and on Friday it randomly rebooted all by itself 11 times. So last night I went in and did a full factory reset. Oh boy. And it's still having troubles. I just want it to last till 1 more generation. Okay. Well, I will read that comment when my phone catches up to us. Which may be one day. Anyways, we're talking about the first book in the Time Quintet series.
A Wrinkle
That's kind of
in Time.
redundant.
I know, right?
The Hitchhiker's Trilogy series. Yeah. But yes, the first in the Time Quintet, Wrinkle in Time, the only one people actually know about.
But I'm surprised, like, neither of us read it before.
Yeah.
So, I used to work at a bookstore, and A Wrinkle in Time was often on, not the required summer reading list. At least, not for my school. I think it's often on the... Like, the way my school worked was that for summer reading, we had, 5 or 6 required books you had to read, and then there were 3 others that you had to read as well, but you could choose from the list that they provided for you. A Wrinkle of Time was always on that list, but I had never pursued it, and I really don't know why, because it's a fascinating mixture of fantasy and science. I guess the idea is it's supposed to actually just be science, but it seems more in the realm of science fantasy.
Yeah, definitely science fantasy because, and I have some things to talk about when we get to that section. But yeah, it was written in, where did I put that?
1960 something.
Yeah, I think 1962. Yeah, 1962. We open with, it was a dark and stormy night.
Classic.
Which I had to do some research on. Originally, that line was the first line in a book in 1830 by a book written by Paul Clifford, who was known for overly dramatic books. Like, a lot of people contemporary just thought he shouldn't write. Kind of like how people think about, what's the term? Fan works.
Oh, fanfic?
Fan fiction. It was just bad. But then, like, a little bit afterwards, when somebody, like, denounced his books and said they were, like, the worst thing ever, and nobody should read them, his either daughter or granddaughter came up and was like, actually, all these cliche lines that are still used today all came from him. So that was a really interesting thing. Do I have what one of them could have been? Probably not.
Well, Dark and Stormy Night as well.
The pen is mightier than the sword.
Oh,
was
really?
His too. Yeah.
I thought that was Shakespeare.
No, and it was his and written all the time. Or I don't even know what that line just meant. I just said words.
Written all
the time. You heard it here first.
And hopefully the last time you will hear it. Let's be hopeful here. But anywho.
I've lost all my contacts, so I don't know who Mom is. Great.
Aww.
I tried backing that up. I'll have to see if I can't restore it later on. Okay, so...
Alright, I guess I'll start it off.
Well, I have something. So, one of the interesting things... Oh.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Go, one of the interesting things.
Before it turned full-on Christian...
Which surprised the heck out of me, and I was a little annoyed with.
Yeah, it was like 4 or 5 chapters in before all of a sudden it took this like hard right turn. I was like, okay.
Alright.
We're going the style of Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. What's his name?
C.S. Lewis.
C.S. Lewis.
I almost said Lewis Carroll. I watched the... Okay, side note. I watched the
This is a good episode already.
Right. I watched the 1951 animated Disney's Alice in Wonderland last night. And actually I fell asleep right before Alice met the Queen.
Oh, really?
Like, the last thing I remember was the Cheshire Cat showing her the short cut. That's the last thing I remember. And then I totally fell asleep. And then when I woke up again, I could hear the ending music stuff, and I was like, oh crap, well, whatever. But
there was a couple times your eyes were open after that.
Oh, was it? Yeah. I think I might have blinked. But my side note is this. The animation in that 1951, regular 2D animation is beautiful. And it makes me want to watch Sleeping Beauty, Sword in the Stone, Snow White, although Snow White was... Oh gosh, Snow White was, I think, even earlier than Alice in Wonderland. I feel like Snow White was the 40s. But the animation was just so beautiful and clean, and she was singing about how she would sit by a babbling brook, and they showed the stream, and it was just, the water was gorgeous. And I mean, so that was just a little side note that I noticed when I was watching it. I was like, oh my gosh, everything is just so beautiful. Backgrounds especially were just gorgeous. But anyway, that has nothing to do with, well, the Wrinkle in Time movie is a Disney movie. Mind you, it's live action. Well, live action. We'll see how much
it looks
CG
like
is
it'll
in
be
there.
visually interesting.
Yes, which it's going to have to be, given
what happened.
Yeah, like what What's It turned into.
Yeah. So, one of the interesting things about this is when I first started reading the books, there was a line where Calvin, one of our main kids, he goes to the home of the other kids. Oh, jeez.
Mrs. Murphy's home.
Yeah, Mrs. Murphy's home. And he says, I've never been here before, but I feel like I've returned home.
Yes, very interesting.
And what's interesting about that is that's how I kind of felt reading the beginning of this book. Because reading this book is much like a European linguist learning Latin for the first time. I was getting all these like subtle connections to all these other books I've read, who's obviously read this.
Oh
like,
my
I was getting a
gosh.
huge Fablehaven.
Yes,
did you get any of that? Yeah.
Definitely Fablehaven,
And
Harry Potter.
Oh yeah.
Lord of the Rings.
Well, Lord of the Rings was before this, so.
Oh, that's no.
Yeah.
I thought The Hobbit was written before World War II.
Oh jeez.
But I thought Lord of the Rings was written after World War... Well, this was after World War II. World War II ended in, 1942, I think? But I thought Lord of the Rings was written... I thought the first one was written in, 72. Maybe... I'm thinking of my parents have a box set at home. And I think that might have been the first box set to come out. It looks like it's been around since the 70s, I'll tell you right now. My mom might have bought it when she was in college.
Because all of the Lion, Rich, and the Wardrobes were written before this book.
Oh, were they?
Yeah, because I was trying to... Because I had a strong feeling of C.S. Lewis with this, too.
Yeah, you said.
When it did that.
Yeah.
So I went back to see who influenced who. Except Madeleine L'Engle... I don't know how you pronounce that. L'Engle.
Good enough.
Madeleine of the Angels. Was fully American, whereas C.S. Lewis and Tolkien were British.
Yeah, they're English.
I don't want the movie...
Book, just say Lord
of the Rings. But yeah, so I went back and looked at that, and of course C.S. Lewis and Tolkien were...
Best buds.
Best buds, to the point that Tolkien converted C.S. Lewis into Christianity.
Lewis was an atheist.
Yeah, which...
Did you know that?
You wouldn't if you read...
You absolutely wouldn't. Yeah. I mean, Adam and Eve, children of Adam and Eve. Son of Adam, daughter of Eve, blah, 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 blah. Aslan being...
Lord of the Rings, written in stages between 1937 and 1949.
Where the heck am I getting the 70s thing? Again, maybe that's just when my parents got the box set. I don't know.
The first single volume edition, so all of it into one... Omnibus, was 1968. But yeah, I don't...
It's not an omnibus, though. They have a box set of the 3. I don't know. Okay, so maybe, yeah, there's a little Lord of the Rings in there.
And that must be Dad. I don't have any contacts anymore. Who dis? Fellowship of Ring, 1955.
Okay.
And... yeah, Lord of the Rings, written between 37 and 49. Thank you, commenters.
Yeah, so we see a lot of influence. The first thing I did, my first little note is Charles Wallace. Origin of all of Stephen King's mysteriously psychic children?
Maybe.
Because Calvin is too!
Yeah.
Calvin seems to me more like Pete Latimer. He gets vibes.
Yeah. Well, you know what else? They're in New England, I feel like.
I don't know, because...
judging by some of the things that were said, it feels like they're currently in New England.
I guess, but Calvin definitely speaks with just... There's a little bit of a brogue in there, because he says he has to call me ma. He says he has to call his ma when he, saying that. Because he's clearly of Irish descent, given, O'Keefe is his name, and he's red hair, freckles.
Yeah, and the Murrays are all red hair as well. Well, at least our main girl is.
She's got red hair?
Yeah.
Okay. I couldn't remember. Her dad has brown hair. Light brown hair.
But yeah, so, maybe Maine. I mean, we heard about stories of her getting bullied, so there were bullies. I mean, all the Stephen King tropes are right there.
All the tropes are present. Except for the idea that religion is evil. In this one, religion is obviously good.
Yeah. Which, interestingly, again, when I did research on this book, because it was so fascinating. What am I doing? Mm-hmm. Oh, yes, I made a mess of things for myself last time. I got it. So I did some research. When it turned heavy Christian, I was like, okay, I need to do some research on this. And she believed in, what is it called? Universal salvation, which means everyone will be redeemed in the fullness of God's time or whatever. And what this means is you don't have to be Christian to be redeemed eventually. It's also echoed by somebody else's worldview that hell is not an eternal damnation. It's more like
you're in time out until your soul learns better.
Yeah.
Think about it.
It's the idea of God has parental love for us, and as a parent, you don't want to just constantly torture your children. Hopefully. Mom. No. And so what you do is you do just enough punishment so they learn, and then you welcome them back. Until they do something wrong, then you punish them again. But so that was her belief. But the problem is of course, the secular people denounced this book because it was too religious. Christian bookstores did not stock it because it was not exclusive enough. Because, she welcomed everyone.
Well, you just can't please everybody.
Nope. Or anybody in her case. But she gets taught in school all the time, so, you win some, you lose some.
It's an interesting... I'm not really sure if you'd call it a coming-of-age book, though.
No.
Because, of course, our leading lady, Meg, is in high school, and she's going through, she's the eldest of her family. She's the eldest kid, the only daughter. And she has to deal with, her dad is gone and has been gone for a couple of years now. And people are saying, oh, he must have, run off with a broad or whatever.
Yeah.
The language, I mean, obviously, this was not written in modern times. Because the way everybody talks to each other, they're very, very frank. Which is very interesting. There's a scene where Calvin is in the house, and he's wandering around, and he sees the picture of the scientists on the piano or wherever he sees it, and he says, "Oh, is that your dad?" And he's like, "Oh, I can't remember what he says, because he says something like, your dad is handsome, or he's beyond handsome, or whatever he says," and she very blatantly says, "Well, I think you're handsome," with no hint of embarrassment or anything, which is kind of like. Okay. So
I don't know whether that's how people spoke back then, or, if she's a bad writer. I don't know.
No, I don't know about that. I found it, at first it was a little strange how frank everybody was being with each other, but then I was like, I don't know, I actually kind of like this. The idea that you're not really, nobody's embarrassed to say,
there was some embarrassment in here, but not nearly as much as, a high school character in modern...
Oh, absolutely.
Or late 90s.
And that's what I'm saying. I thought she would have, caught herself and would have been embarrassed that she had said, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I just said, well, I think you're handsome," to his face. But that didn't happen.
No.
And he wasn't embarrassed by her comment either. And it was just kind of it's kind of nice.
Yeah. It also, one of the things I liked about it is it feels like Meg and Calvin might get together. But if so, it's very subtle. It's not pushed at all. Well,
they did kiss.
They're constantly... Yeah, that's true. They were constantly holding hands. She talked about how he was handsome and how he got embarrassed when he paid attention to her. But it was not nearly as pushed as...
You know what it felt like?
Yeah.
It felt like Steven Universe and Connie. That's what it felt like. I don't know if anybody watches Steven Universe on our little stream here, but the main character, Steven, has his friend Connie, and they're, he's 14 and she's 12, and it's almost like, oh, maybe delicate. Like, sometimes they blush a little bit, you know, at each other. But mostly they're just very, very close friends.
They are. And then even when they fuse, it doesn't feel... Spoilers.
It's not romantic, yeah.
Yeah, it's not really romantic so much as just, like, really good friendship that
trust.
If romance does develop from that, it would be built on a very strong basis. But
like someone else I could talk about.
Who? No.
I love him. I beat him because I love him.
Yeah. I say things to get beating because I love them.
Yes.
I did this wrong.
But, so one of the things I noticed that would have taken inspiration from this book, they talk about a Tesseract, first of all. And we know...
Which I have words.
Well, and we know from Marvel, Marvel Cinematic Universe, if you watch it, that the Tesseract is, you know, this device that's this incredible form of energy. It can also help you to travel. It can help you to do, like, all these things. That's what it does in the
That's what it
comics.
does in Marvel,
That's what it does
which
in the
is
comics.
not...
Which, so in this book, it's not a device, it's not a thing, it's just, you can tesser. And the way you tesser is moving through space and time. So they're able to teleport, essentially, from Earth to this other planet. They do a little hopscotch to get to the planet where they're trying to get to. And I found that interesting, first of all, because that was my familiarity with Tesseract. I understand it's more of a mathematical state of being. But, you know, so my familiarity with it was from the Marvel movies. But the way it's described when they tesser, or wrinkle, through time and space sounds an awful lot like how J.K. Rowling describes apparating.
That's true. I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah, I was like, this sounds an awful lot like what it feels like to apparate.
Now, to throw another thing in there, because I don't know if you've dealt with this, when they, in Pern, and McCaffrey's Dragon Riders of Pern...
I've read a couple of them.
They do a couple jumping through space-time, basically, the same way. And again, it's the blackness, you can't feel anything. So yeah, that's definitely... I wonder where that trope started from.
Maybe she's the first to do it.
Maybe.
Who's to say?
So, yeah, I have a problem with the Tesseract because I was thinking about actually drawing some diagrams and then having little diagrams I can put up and do a little PowerPoint presentation on this episode. Because for a series where Mrs. Who, I believe, constantly talks in other languages and translates it, the fact that there is no thought into what Tesseract means. Tesser, which is kind of a form of tetra, and ract, which is ray, means 4 rays. So if you think about square, each vertex has 2 lines coming out of it.
I'm sorry, what is the linguistic root of it? Is it means that
4 rays.
Yeah, in what language does it mean? In Latin? Does it mean in Greek?
Latin.
Latin, okay.
Yeah, I mean, it was created... The first use of the term was about 80 years before this book was written, which I believe was the 80s. I wrote down those notes too because I got... about 1988. But...
1988?
1888, I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's the first time the word tesseract was used. So it's somebody going back into Latin to pull words for it. But yeah, so a cube, each corner has 3 lines coming out of it.
Right.
The next dimension up with 4 lines all parallel to each other has 4 rays, also known as a tesseract, or a hypercube, or a 4-cube. But they go one further and say that a tesseract is the 5th dimensional. So technically what they were talking about was a hypertesseract.
Well, were they talking about that being a tesseract, or were they just trying to explain what it is they're doing?
So, no, they were explaining what tesseract was, which has nothing to do with what they were doing. So folding space-time...
That's my napkin.
If I borrow your napkin, they were talking about how if you have space-time like this, and in this case it's 2-dimensional, and you kind of fold it like this, you can walk right across here, and everything's fine. You just go bloop,
right,
and you travel all that distance without. And yes, it has to fold into the third dimension, but you may notice that this does not look like a cube. I don't know how many cubes you've dealt with, but if we go even one further, so if you think about one-dimensional, going from here to here, you would want to fold up into the second dimension. What you don't want to do is square up, because now you're even further away from where you belong. That's not how you do it. So there, that whole explanation,
math. It made the mathematician angry.
It made the mathematician super angry.
The chemist couldn't really care less.
Chemists should care, because, you know, you can't put a hydrogen atom on... Anyways, chemistry has dimensionality, too.
I know it does.
But yeah, so... basically, if you're walking in a straight line, when they say tessering, that's a bit like saying squaring. So it's like, I'm over here, and I want to go straight over there. I'm going to square and end up over there, skipping the distance. It's the wrong terminology. Now, folding space-time, A-okay. All of that is definitely very theorized about, and an idea of how wormholes could possibly exist, even though we haven't.
Time and relative dimension.
Yeah.
Time and relative dimension in space. There we go.
Yeah, dimensions, I believe.
Time and relative dimensions in space.
Yes.
TARDIS!
So yeah, that was the complete misunderstanding of even what a tesseract is, and like, yes, a tesseract is real.
Which is why I found it to be more...
yeah, it was...
well, go ahead. Finish your rant.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Okay. You sure?
It's just one of those things that I kind of hope they fix in the movie, because as you can see, some people who watch movies get a different idea of what words mean, like Tesseract from Marvel, which...
Well, I understand that they tried... At least they made it look like a cube.
They did make it look like a cube.
They made it look like a weird cube.
Yeah, it's too bad it didn't rotate in the fourth dimension, because that would have made it look really cool.
How exactly are you supposed to visualize rotating in the fourth dimension?
Pretty easily. So if you take a cube and you hold it through through this, if you hold it straight on, it looks like a square, right?
Right.
But if you pick it up and you only put like one corner in, the outline in the two dimensions would be a triangle.
Right.
So...
More tea.
Yes, please. So as you rotate it, you turn into a triangle, into a hexagon. There's a bunch of different two-dimensional shapes, which are all the two-dimensional cross-sections of a cube. And that's how you would rotate it in the third dimension into the second dimension. So if you did that same thing, you would end up with like a little pyramid at points, and then like it would just kind of flow out into a cube or into a couple other of the three-dimensional cross-sections of a tesseract, of a 4-cube, which would be a really neat effect. Instead, they just made it blue and glowy.
It was pretty.
Ish. So I'm hoping they kind of fix the explanation portion in the movie.
We'll see. But, I mean, because it depends how faithful they're going to be to the book.
I know. And
yes, of course, there's a problem with the book having been written, back in the day when maybe they didn't understand it quite as fully.
And it didn't really even need to come up. Like, just saying because it's called A Wrinkle in Time, explained using the skirt as a wrinkle to have an ant walk across.
Right.
Why couldn't they just say we're wrinkling around instead of adding tesser and adding a whole bunch of complication that means nothing?
They said wrinkle as well. They said it
a couple times.
Once or twice. I think just once.
But
which I guess is where the
stuck with that?
title of the book comes from.
Yeah, because it's not called a tesser in time.
Right. But anywho.
So yes, I got things. So anywho.
Going back to things that have clearly pulled their influence from this book. When we get to the planet, when we get to
Kamazots. It's a hard to pronounce word.
Well,
Kamazots.
When we get to Kamazots, all of a sudden we see a lot of sci-fi. Like, we're talking Twilight Zone, we're talking The Matrix, Borg, I mean, we're talking all the stuff. Probably mostly Borg, I should say. Because I would say mostly Borg just because at the root of it, it's this... They keep saying it. And the first time I read it, because both letters are capitalized, I kept reading it as IT.
Yeah. And I chose to keep reading it as IT, and it was very humorous.
Well, yes. I mean, I did for a little bit, and then when we actually see that it is this, rather large brain, and they say, oh, we can see now why they refer to it as it. And that was the first time that I was like, oh, I see. They're not referring to it as IT. No. Which makes sense, because, again, having this book written back in the 60s, you said?
62.
Back in 62. I'm not sure if information technology was a well-known thing or if it even really was around that much. I can't imagine it wasn't around at all. Because there were computers. They were, about the size of this room, if not bigger, and had less processing power than my phone. But, so I'm not sure if information technology was kind of around. But I kept reading it as IT, and it still made sense. Because it was still this central,
That's true.
Central motherboard or CPU or whatever you want to call it that was controlling everybody and making sure that everything everywhere was the way it was supposed to be. Kind of like the Matrix, kind of like the Borg, who are a collective, because it could speak through people. And there was something else. It wasn't just the Borg. And I swear you and I have watched it somewhat recently, or we read about it. There was something that did that it wasn't the Borg, but I'm still going to use the term assimilated people and spoke through... Of course, the Ancillary series.
Yes.
Yeah, the Ancillary series. Duh. I was like, this sounds so
Shout
familiar.
out to our previous episodes.
Right? I was like, this sounds so familiar. What I couldn't get it.
What am I talking about?
Okay, yes, definitely the Ancillary series. The idea being that you could have an ancillary, a soldier, a person, but the actual physical biological unit is no longer an individual. It's part of the collective, like the Borg. But even in the Borg, you were able to kind of pull out a little bit of individuality, like with Hugh, in that one episode in Next Generation. You can see who the giant nerd is right over here. I even knew the guy's name, Hugh. Nope. I even knew the Borg's name. I can't remember his serial number, but his name was Hugh. they called him Hugh. But that was kind of cool, because, like, when they described it, as soon as they dropped down on the planet and the kids were walking through the neighborhood and the kids were all bouncing the balls or jump roping in the same rhythmic pattern, it felt like a Twilight Zone episode.
Mm.
Like, just the way even they described it, all the colors were duller. It was as if all the colors were muted. Like the live-action Alice in Wonderland that Tim Burton did. They could have been bright and beautiful, but it was muted and dark and just, it was very Twilight Zone episode. And no one was paying attention to the kids, unless they really made an effort, and even then, Charles Wallace tried to ask somebody which way to go, and they hardly even recognized the kid and just kept walking. And it was interesting. It was one of those weird, just like, ugh.
Right, because it's interesting. It's also interesting because I feel like it wasn't controlling all them so much as they were just so scared of it that they were doing that. But getting that level of synchronicity is a word I just made up. Just because you're afraid of something just seems really kind of crazy, because when the doorbell rings, everybody pops their head out at the same time. It's like nobody was on the loo and had to rush to the door.
Right. I think it was definitely more of 1, 2, 3. Like the Borg or like the ancillaries. They're all hooked up to this one artificial intelligence, which I'm not sure what else to call the brain thing, unless you want me to call it Krang. But that's because that's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That's totally different. But anyway, the stupid movie. Sorry. There was the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles sequel, and I never actually saw it. but I saw a review of it because it had Krang in it. It had Bebop and Rocksteady, and everyone was so excited, and they were terrible. They were terrible. Okay. Also, Krang didn't have his typical Krang voice, which I really liked his voice. It was all weird and alien and stuff. And in the movie, he was more... It was like a deep voice, like, Krang won't talk like that.
Wow.
You know, that was more what he talked like. And like in the movie, it was more... Almost like Bane. From the Dark Knight series. It was like, that's not what Krang sounds like. No. I didn't approve. But anyway, we got off topic again. What was I talking about?
No idea.
The brain. So here's my question, is where did this disembodied brain come from?
Yeah.
They described it as being just larger than a regular human brain, which she has seen. Just larger enough to the point that it was truly revolting to look at. So it couldn't have been ridiculously oversized, in my opinion.
Right.
Because ridiculously oversized would almost be fascinating. Be like, what?
Yeah.
Why is there a brain the size of a small boulder? You know,
elephant brain.
What is so weird? You know, yeah. Instead, it seemed to be described more as, you know, the size of a basketball or something. So it's just a little bit bigger that wouldn't fit in any human skull. So I don't know. It's very interesting because the way the book ended was almost very interesting. Because they get Dad back and they all return home and everybody's, you know, hunky dory and all that jazz, and then the three Mrs. W's come to say their farewells, and then a gust of wind takes them and they're just gone.
Yeah.
And it's like, did they do it? Did they plan it that way, or did something spirit them away?
Well, it felt like something spirited them away because they were rushing to say goodbye. It also gave that strong feel of the end of the Mario Brothers movie, the live action movie, where they're like, you gotta come. You gotta come and see this. And then that's the end of the movie to like sequel bait.
Right, to sequel
Except,
bait,
you know, this one was actually good enough to get sequels. So I'm kind of curious what the next will be.
Yeah, like we weren't planning on doing a series for this. This is just supposed to be a one-off, but I mean, I'm definitely going to read the rest of the books.
Yeah, so once we have a slot open in the short series, because it's only 4 more books after this, hence Quintet, not Tesseret, we'll feed in the rest of these Wrinkle in Times. Let's see. I don't know, I still have my one note. Charles Wallace really grew on me.
He was annoying and weird at first.
At the very beginning, he was very creepy, and I'm like, 5-year-olds should not be talking like this. Right? I don't care how smart they are.
Because, like, we have a 5-year-old niece, so the idea of her talking like this, it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Serious Stephen King stuff here, okay?
I mean, yeah, that's not even just, like, hyper-intelligence. It's, like...
mature.
It's like somebody got reincarnated, but didn't lose their memories.
Right.
Is how it feels.
Yeah, it was a little weird. But he did grow on you, because he did get frustrated and he did get scared, so it wasn't like he was this Gary Stu character who nothing fazed him, even though he was only 4 years old. But no, I liked him. I did like him. And I was a little skeptical about Calvin, but Calvin grew on me as well. Yeah. I liked him too.
I'm disappointed with Meg. Like, part of it was her, like you said, almost a coming of age, except not. Because all through the book, she basically just dragged. She doesn't really do anything until the very final end of the book where she's like, okay, I have to do something. But it's like, if the story was about... She
doesn't even want to, though.
Well, she just has to because her brother.
Right.
And if the story was about her, you know, learning to, you know, actually do something...
Or maybe it was about her dealing with if she was like a late bloomer and she was just coming to grips with her, you know, genius intellect like her little brother, and like she had to cope with that, with the ability to actually look into somebody and see what they, or not even see, but feel and understand them. Because Charles Wallace is trying to explain, he's like, it's not that I read your mind, it's more I read your body language, your emotion. Like, I know exactly what you're feeling, but not really exactly what you're thinking, kind of a thing. Which, yeah, she does say, you know, I don't really care what he says, it's basically mind reading, and it's like, yes and no. But yeah, like, cause we open up with her being a bit of a troublemaker.
Yeah, a little bit.
Well, she goes... This is why I thought she was actually in middle school, is because we start off, we know that she went and beat up this guy who said her brother was a moron, whatever. So she beats him up, and I'm like, that felt very middle school to me. And we find out later she is in high school. And I'm like, oh, so she's older than I thought, but she's not really acting it. But because she went and beat this boy up, I was like, oh, okay, cool. We've got kind of like a strong female character. What's she going to do to the brain? Because she says at one point, she's like, oh, if I could, I'd slice it open and then dissect it. And I'm like, yeah, do that. And she's like, no, I love my brother. I'm going to save him with the power of love.
Yeah, the plot ended with love works. Now, granted, if you're doing a Christian story where you believe the Christian God is the ultimate virtue of love,
forgiveness, acceptance,
and all that.
Fair enough.
And the other side, who is unnamed,
that's why it's just called It.
Is basically all the opposite of that. That's like one of the few times I will accept love being the tool
what
used.
Wins the day.
Yeah.
I suppose.
Well, love in that fashion of just kind of declaring love over and over, and
I will say this.
Kind of feeling it, but
yeah, that was kind of weird. But I will say this: I was pleasantly surprised by the fact that once they did get her father back, he wasn't the hero of the story.
Yeah,
he knew even less than they did. He wasn't sure what to do. He sort of kind of knows how to wrinkle, but not great.
Yeah,
you know, and she was angry at him because she expected that now that her father was back, he would be able to take care of everything. But he couldn't, because that was just the reality of the situation, is just because he's a man and he's your father doesn't mean he's going to be able to save the day.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I kind of liked that. I thought that was a little on the revolutionary side for the 60s, you know, written by a woman. So I was just like, okay, that's kind of cool. We have a comment?
We do. One day. But yeah, because I was thinking, like, if it was a story about her gaining confidence and starting to take action, you would think that she would have basically learned that lesson at the beginning of Act 2, and then had troubles come from that, and then, like, for the climax, she actually does it correctly type thing. Why is this opening random things on my phone? Oh, peel remote again. Son of a... Get that uninstalled somehow.
Yes, and when you figure out how to do it, please uninstall it from mine. I don't like that either.
Well, it's just general bloatware, so you kind of have to... Yeah, you can't really uninstall it. You can just reduce it back to the factory settings and then disable it. Let's see. Girls weren't supposed to be in charge in those times. Knights in shining armor are supposed to tell us what to do, says Mom. Meg is younger than Calvin, who is 14. I was also looking on the wiki.
Whoa, 14?
Yeah, Calvin is 14.
But they said she was in high school. I was 14 when I went into high school.
Yeah, so on the wiki, trying to figure out timelines of all these people, from all the books, it's theorized that... Because they were theorizing online, because nothing really matches up, that Meg was 14 in this book as well. But we know Meg is at least a year younger than Calvin.
Right.
Because Calvin's a grade higher, at least one grade higher.
Yeah, I mean, so, I thought he was 17, the way they were describing him.
Yeah. But no, she's like 13 or 14.
But that's not high school.
She's super smart? I don't know. No, because she's failing her classes because she doesn't do her homework.
Exactly, she doesn't do her homework.
Kind of like me.
Bored.
But yeah, no, the ages don't really work.
I mean, the only person that we actually get a number for is Charles Wallace. He's 4 years old. And he's, you know, he doesn't like to talk when other people are around, so people think, oh, he's not intelligent, he's the opposite, but instead, he doesn't talk because it puts people off, because he's so articulate, and he knows more than he seems, you know? Like you said, it was almost creepy, because he seemed to not be a 4-year-old.
5-year-old should not be that articulate.
There you go.
Okay. Jumping back on a positive.
I mean, they say, 5-year-olds should not be that articulate, and she goes, and he himself is only 4 or something.
Oh. Was he 4?
I think. Yes.
I don't remember. I thought he was 5.
She says, our 5-year-olds, where's that line? You just said it. 5-year-olds should not be that articulate.
No, that's a line I made up.
Oh, she says that line, though.
I need that page saved.
I'm marking it. Okay, the twins are 10 years old, even though they sound like they're in middle school.
So yeah, she has to be between 11 and 14. Well, 10 and 14 inclusive, but barely.
How could they sleep? Blah, blah, blah. You keep talking while I find it.
Because if the twins... Yeah, if like the twins were born within like 2 or 3 months after... Well... conceived 2 or 3 months after she was born, then they could technically still all be the same age, but that would be pushing it a lot. So probably somewhere between 11 and 14.
Yeah, I mean, when we saw the preview for the movie, it looks like, to me, like she's in middle school. Oh, and
he hadn't talked until he was 4.
Almost 4. And turn white with fear, blah blah blah.
The exciting part of Spin a Yarn Live, where we read a book at you. In our heads. Page 15, Charles Wallace is 5.
Page 15. Okay.
15. You're almost there.
Begin his big baby. Meg now his diction clearer and cleaner than most 5-year-olds.
Yeah. Oh, I guess I'd...
Yeah.
Clearer and cleaner than that of most 5-year-olds. That doesn't necessarily guarantee he's 5. Just saying that his diction is clearer than 5. But his diction is clearer than most, 17-year-olds, to be fair.
Right.
So yeah, probably 5 years old is what they were going for with that. Him being part of that classification and him being an outlier in that 15-year-old.
I swear somewhere they talk about how he's 4.
I think you might just be thinking of that one line where...
Because I thought the line was, clearer than most 5-year-olds, and he not even being 5.
Huh.
I.e. him being 4. But maybe I made it up.
Anyways.
Page marked.
So, jumping off topic, Mrs. Whatsit. She was fun. She was younger than all the other misses, or all the other, whatever they are, probably angels.
I said they were stars.
Oh yeah, they were stars.
They're stars. They're not angels. They're stars.
Which, I mean, could still be the same thing in this mythology. We'll see. But yeah, because she's half the age of our son. Because it gives her age at one point, and I looked it up. And yeah, pretty much not exactly half.
Yeah, she's like...
Because that would have been convenient, but...
She's like, what is she?
2 billion or something?
2.5 billion. 2.6, something like that.
Yeah, and...
Which then, when we find out later she's a star, I was like, okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah. But they also can time travel, so it doesn't necessarily mean anything. But that's a really young star to already be dead. I mean, she fought it and sacrificed herself for it, But yeah, no, when she's in the house, my favorite line is, have you ever tried to get to your feet with a sprained dignity? It's like,
I did like that line. I was like, oh no. Because I asked if she was injured, and she was like, oh, my dignity hurts.
Yeah.
Because she had fallen over, and I was just like, wow, that's really funny.
Yeah.
I like that.
I always like when, because there's been other shows who have done it too. I don't know if Steven Universe did it. But another kids show has well, I guess I'm taking most of that.
You can have the rest of it. Oh, is there any more in the pot?
I think a smidge.
We'll go ahead and pour it into my cup because it'll warm it up. You can probably grab the handle like normal at this point. Paul is terrified of hurting any of my china. As well he should be.
Yes.
Because this one in particular I would not be able to find again at the price which I've got. Actually, I'm not even sure if I'd be able to find it. I'm very excited. I just ordered off of Etsy some dessert plates in this pattern. I'm so excited.
Okay. Oh, more messages.
But anyway.
So what did you think about Mrs. Whatsit?
I liked her. I thought she was cute. Like, as you say, she being the youngest, she was actually able to kind of articulate things a little bit better.
Yeah.
I kind of enjoyed Mrs. Who, though, in that she kept either quoting or saying things in different languages.
I wasn't sure to enjoy that or be annoyed with it. Mm-hmm. Like, I was on the fence there.
She is clearly Doctor Who's mom. That's all I have to say. Because I was like, Mrs. Who? And I was like, is it his wife? Is it his daughter? You know, and then I was like, no, I got it. This is his mom. This is totes his mom. In my own little fan theory.
Yes.
You know what the whole thing reminds me of, though?
Okay.
Go ahead.
So, yeah, Calvin is 14, who's in 11th grade.
So they jumped him.
They must have. Unless this is... Well, no, because this was written in America, so I don't know what the grades are, but usually you're about 5 or 6 years older than your grade level. So, like, a senior in high school in 12th grade would be about 17 going on 18.
I was 17 going on 18.
Yeah. That's usually the case. Because you start first grade first grade as, like, a 6-year-old.
Yeah. Well,
so,
I was 5, but...
Yeah, he's 4... So, something must have changed between 1960s and when we grew up, because apparently junior, which is 11th grade, which is still called juniors, either, something's changed or they've all jumped grades because she's young. Meg is younger than Calvin,
right?
And she was with one of her friends. Told her that they're not in grammar school anymore, which means that her friend...
She's in middle school. She's gotta be in what I would consider to be middle school. She's 12 or 14 or 13. That's gotta be it.
Anyways, that's all weird.
Yeah, it is weird. Well, and in England, your schooling kind of ends at 17 or 18 years old. Yeah. Then you go off to, if you go to university, you're going to a specialized university. Yeah. You're focusing on whatever. But again,
this isn't British.
No. I'm just saying that it could be that back in the 60s there was something different going on. I'm jealous of the Brits who do that way. Because if I'd have known, I probably would have gone straight to doing this stuff. But anyway.
Oh, one other thing I noticed. Calvin and Charles Wallace, they talked, and I know you don't often read this kind of stuff, but they talked as if they were in mediocre rational fic. Always talking kind of science or human biases or rationality type things. And like in the mediocre fic, your main characters or your other characters talk like that more often than anyone would in the real world. Yeah. Even rational people in the real world. And yeah, I was getting a heavy feel of that from Charles Wallace and Calvin. It was like, is this rationalist fic before rationalist fic was a thing? Actually, I don't know when rationalist fic began, but fanfic began with the original series Star Trek, so 60s. Well, I mean, there was fanfic before.
Because I'm sitting here going, what is the Odyssey if not a fanfic?
Well, and then also Sherlock Holmes had a lot of stuff. No, I'm talking more the
the cult of it.
The Mary Sue character. Mary Sue.
And Gary Stu.
Got their start from a original series Star Trek fanfic.
Yeah. I wouldn't doubt that.
No, not slash fic.
Slash is something totally different.
Yeah.
I mean, we probably got a lot of slash from that. Oh,
and the biggest break of suspension of disbelief in this book.
For you, yes.
For me.
Yeah.
Biggest break. Hmm? She wakes up, has to move the kitten off the bed, and then it goes downstairs and drinks milk. That kitten would have been downstairs begging for milk an hour before that.
I thought you were going to say, no way would the kitten have just let her do that.
Nope.
Would have jumped right back up to the warm spot that it had been forced to vacate.
And it's not like the kitten doesn't care, because we later see the kitten begging for milk in the evening. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, the fact that she had to, like, wake the kitten up, I'm like, no. Biggest break is suspension.
It only says that because our cat, as soon as the crack of dawn shows up, is in our faces.
If not earlier.
He's a little baby.
If one of us turns over, he thinks we're getting up. Even if it's 3 a.m. Let's see. Lots of notes about how Tesseract is just wrong. Wrong. Youngest 2 to 4 billion years. Or 2.4? I don't know. Half the age of a sun. Oh. The, medium happy or...
What, the happy medium?
The happy medium, there we go. So, happy medium was fun. But she constantly is looking in her crystal ball and just on occasion laughing hysterically at random. You know what she was doing? She was looking at lolcats.
Yes. That's fine.
I mean, I'm pretty sure that, pre-internet, happy medium or Madeleine L'Engle called the fact that people would just be staring into crystal balls, laughing randomly at what they see.
That's fine.
There's also no explanation for why. Why do all the clues have to be cryptic? Now, granted, that's a fiction trope that exists all over the place, but it's like, you couldn't just tell the kids the information they needed at the get-go?
It's a journey, and sometimes you have to walk part of the journey alone, and you have to figure things out for yourself. Yes, I think it's stupid too. But I'm just saying, it's a very, very common trope. And it's not going away.
No.
So you're just going to have to deal with it.
But there is that. Then all of the... we got the flying centaurs.
They weren't really centaurs. I had difficulty trying to visualize them.
Yeah, because at that point, she broke into almost a Douglas Adams style description of, like, it hangs in the sky much the same way that a brick doesn't. And, like, that's not actually a description of what's happening.
Yeah.
But she does that. It's like, at first I thought they were centaurs, but it was very clear they were nothing like centaurs.
Yeah. Something not quite, but almost not at all like tea or whatever.
Yeah.
The drink was. I can't remember the quote exactly.
Something not quite not quite entirely unlike tea, or something like that. Yeah, I can't remember the quote anymore.
Not quite like, I don't know. But anyway, yeah.
So yeah, that's all my notes for this. I don't know if I would read this again. It was interesting. Like, I'm going to read the rest of the series.
Yeah.
I am excited for the movie.
Oh, I'll bet you it's going to be stunning.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how the movie does it, because the plot, fairly basic. Some kids, they get taken on a journey without really doing anything, and then at the end they save the day.
Yeah.
It's not that complex. The complex part is how
they keep trying to kind of force feed you the science and the logic. Yeah. Because the whole idea is that they come from a family of scientists.
Yeah. which is also weird. What is the mother doing in her chemistry set?
Biology.
That makes tesseracts.
No, she's just researching.
No, I know. She's just researching, but it's like...
But no, but she's not researching.
No, she's not. It was him. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But she knew of tesseracts, so one would think that she would try and figure it out as well, because she might think that he was, but... Yeah, no, just weird saying, like, tesseracts are real. It's like going to somebody and saying, cubes are real. It's like, okay.
So are dice.
Yeah.
They happen to be cubes.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But... The concept is real. What?
Another thing that I found a little odd.
Or it's like saying the number 3 is real. It's like...
We never get to know the mom and dad's name.
True.
They were repeatedly referred to as Mrs. Murray and Mr. Murray. Interesting that they are Mr. and Mrs. Yet all of their studying and things that they've done, you would think they would
go
be
by doctors. Yeah.
Which I just thought of just now.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not Mrs. Murray, because it's the 60s. But surely Mr. Murray would have been Dr. Murray. If he was a physicist, surely he would have been Dr. Murray.
Yeah, especially somebody who was on, like, the tip of things. Surely he would have had at least an honorary doctorate, even if he didn't go after a PhD.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It was a little weird. But anyway, overall, I enjoyed the book. I absolutely see why it is something that a lot of schools put on their reading list. Particularly, I went to a private Christian school, so... particularly schools like that, I can see why they would have it on the reading list.
Yeah, especially as it did influence our culture quite a bit, even though I didn't know it at the time. But yeah, a lot of the things I've read have clearly their authors read Wrinkle in Time before.
Absolutely, like we said, the way. I
mean, Fablehaven was the most clear to me. It's like.
I never got Fablehaven.
You didn't get Fablehaven?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I never got Fablehaven from it. I guess you're talking about because they went, not in their backyard, but they went to this haunted house where these other beings were. Because with Fablehaven...
Well, a lot of, like, just the kids being brought... I mean, saying kids got brought into a fantasy land is not a short list of books. But,
let's
just the way it's all been done.
Start with Narnia and work our way up. No, yeah... I get... Well, no, because... Well, I don't know if Narnia was the first to do it. Because when did you say Narnia was written?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
Before the 60s.
Right, exactly. So they're written back then. But yeah, but again, to me it was more of a Harry Potter... Like, well... The
Yeah.
The idea that there are these other worlds out there that's... almost hidden from us, except in this case it wasn't that it was actually on Earth, and the idea of ignorance is bliss, like from Fablehaven,
right.
Like from Mercy Thompson. If you don't see it, then it probably can't bother you. But this had to do more with the fact that Earth is just more or less alone in its little area, and they had to wrinkle or tesser to another section of the universe. Yeah. So that's why I said it was more science fantasy.
Yeah.
Because they were trying to still anchor it in a reality that is familiar to us. But with...
I just had a thought, and now it's gone.
Oh, I'm sorry. But, we definitely see the influence where, like I said, the wrinkling or the tessering, traveling through and getting squeezed, as it were, very, very similar to the Harry Potter's apparating. And then, of course, when they get to the dark planet that is ruled by it, and it's very 1984, very Borg, very Matrix, very Twilight Zone episode. So, you can see where a lot of science fiction fantasies have drawn their inspiration from this book.
Or from the same inspirations that this book drew from.
Indeed.
Man, I just had something...
I'm sorry.
...that frustrated me about this book. And I cannot recall what it was.
Well, we are a little over an hour at this point, so let's go ahead and wrap it up. We will be gone for 2 weeks because we're traveling on the 10th and then on the 17th. We're going out west on the 10th and then we'll be coming back on the 17th. So we will not have anything then. But when we come back on the 24th. Yes, I had to do math. When we come back on the 24th, we will be talking about...
the Sixth Dresden book.
Which one's that?
Oh... Blood Rights.
Blood Rights.
Which I can't remember what this one is.
What happens in Blood Rights?
Oh. This is
I like this one.
Interesting one. Yeah, I like it too. It gets kind of weird.
But, you know, it doesn't really... It's not
fine.
that it gets weird. It's a nice...
Just read it.
It's a nice kind of whodunit. Well, they're all nice whodunits. But then you get the fun twist of who this person is ending up with. You're like, oh, it was that person. Ooh, you know.
Okay. So yes, that's that. And then, okay, I guess we don't need to do 2 in advance when we're 3 weeks out from our next review. But the one after that on March 31st, we're going to do the first of the Keepers trilogy by Tanya Huff. Summon the Keeper.
It's got kitties.
It does have a kitty. I still haven't read it.
I still haven't read it yet,
but
so we'll see.
Mom sent me her copies for Christmas because of the show, so...
We'll give it a read.
We'll give it a read. So that's that. Of course, we won't get to the second Wrinkle in Time for a while. Probably not until after we finish the Keeper series. We'll see what's going on when we'll come back. We'll definitely come back to...
Yeah, we'll come back and we'll finish
Time Quintet.
Yeah, why not?
But if you're waiting on us, don't.
Yeah, no.
Because it'll be wrong. And go see the movie. I think the movie will only be covering the first book. Everything I've researched says based on the novel. And like nowhere does anything that's talking about the movie mention the fact that the novel had sequels. So
we're assuming, but it's because that was my worry as I was getting closer and closer to the end. It definitely felt like something that could stretch out. But this particular story comes to an end. They save Dad. They get back to the planet Earth. Everybody's still alive and in their own heads and all that jazz. But it is still at large, you know. So there are.
Oh, that's what it is.
Yes.
Fighting it. We get talking about all these people who have fought it. And it's all the people of science. And it's all the people using reason and the Enlightenment.
No, it's not.
Mostly.
No.
It's Einstein
it's Jesus.
Jesus was there too.
It's Gandhi, it's Buddha, so it's religious figures as well.
It is religious figures as well, but there's a lot of...
And then there's a lot of artists and scientists. They mentioned Da Vinci, they mentioned Michelangelo, they mentioned Copernicus. I don't know if they mentioned Galileo. But yes, yeah. On our planet, yes.
So I was kind of hoping, but not really thinking it possible, that we would end with some sort of science enlightenment ending, or like somehow bring Kamaztat's, whatever that planet is, into kind of a revolution for freedom, but like in a scientific way type thing to fight it.
That might happen in the later books.
It might. But instead we're like, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. Oh no, says it. That's its voice. And it's like, oh no, I lost control of this boy I was controlling because somebody declared their love for their family member. It's like, nobody else has declared love.
Look, but the whole idea is that Charles Wallace is a little bit more advanced mentally than everybody else. So his ability to grab hold to something emotional that he was able to get. Because Calvin almost got him back.
Yeah.
But could not quite get it. So it did make sense that Meg was the only one who would be able to bring him back of the party that was there.
Yeah.
Especially since they talk about how Charles is able to more easily read his mother and Meg. The twins, he doesn't so much because they don't need his help, is what's referred to.
Yeah, because that's the other thing is, like, we keep getting told that Meg is, of course, second to Charles Wallace, but one of the smarter people.
Yeah.
And that she's smart, but we never really... We're told that. We're not shown that really kind of ever.
Well, yeah, we are, because when Calvin is having difficulty with his math homework, she's able to solve it for him.
Yeah.
And she explains it in a different way, and he's able to get it a lot
But, like, once
better.
the plot starts moving, she doesn't use that kind of ever.
Yeah, no, I know, but remember, it's written in the 60s.
I know.
It's not quite as progressive as I wanted, given that the last thing we read was myth.
Yeah.
But I was happy with it. I was happy with her being a child. Let's assume she's 12. So I'm okay with the way she was.
Yeah.
Now I have to say I like Kendra from Fablehaven a little bit more.
Yes.
We see her arc far more sharply, how she becomes way more confident in herself. And then with Seth, we see his arc and how he really has to reel himself back in.
Yeah.
So, we'll do Fablehaven at some point.
At some point, yes.
I like Fablehaven. It's fun.
Once we finish One Piece. No.
But baby, we can't finish One Piece. One Piece isn't finished.
You need to catch up to One Piece.
Yes, I know. I've not been reading the more recent things.
Okay.
Anyway, let's wrap it up so I can stand up again.
Let us know how far you got through. Last time Mom got 4 or 5 squares done.
I actually got 2.5 rounds in. I'm quite pleased.
I've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 stitches. So, that's us. Couldn't do those things. Yeah, I was supposed to ask you to tell me what you've got done before we did the preview for the next week. We need to get on the ball here.
We're getting into the rhythm of it.
Yeah, and then we're going to spend 2 weeks not doing it and then forget everything by the time we do the next Dresden Files.
Let's not forget everything. Blood Rights.
Blood Rights.
I still have to finish Summer Night and
The other one.
Death Masks?
Yes.
Death Masks. I'm getting there. I've already read them. I just need to reread them again so I know what I'm talking about.
You have a lot of reading to... Well, no, we have 3 weeks, so you have time.
We've got 3 weeks, and we're flying for like 4 hours, so I'll do... Of course, I need to work on your scarf.
Oh my goodness.
I need to get knitting.
Alright, get knitting. Everybody do your things.
Oh. I'll wait till Paul turns the camera off.
Oh, yes. Okay, so, until next time. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for joining us.